Welcome to the Knowledge Entrepreneurs Show, where we celebrate the innovators driving change in the education industry. At Edison OS, we've worked with over 500 knowledge entrepreneurs to turn their edtech ideas into profitable businesses. In today's episode of the Knowledge Entrepreneur Show, we have Susan Weeks, the founder of the Crafty Course Booster. Susan Weeks is the Crafty Course Profit Booster and the host of Stitchery Stories, the globally popular textile art podcast. Susan teaches creative people how to create a profitable, online, on-demand version of their popular in-person classes, even if they are scared of the techy stuff. Through her long corporate career in technology and training and running her online knowledge-based business, Susan has been transforming lives, careers, and businesses with her training since 1996. Hi, Sue. Good morning. Welcome to the Knowledge Entrepreneur Show. Thank you so much for taking your time out to be here with me today.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure, and thank you for inviting me. And it's a while since I've done a podcast, so not my own, but I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you so much. And I think it's afternoon for you, isn't it? And it's morning for me because I'm in Yorkshire, on the East Yorkshire coast in the UK. So I hope everybody can understand my Yorkshire accent.
So far, so good, Sue. Thank you. It's our pleasure to have you on the show. Sue, before we get started with the main topic, if you can, walk us through your journey. You've got a pretty rich journey. You've done so much. If you can just walk us through that journey and how did that lead to the point where you started your podcast? Because I think that's where everything kind of fell in together.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'll try and go for a short nutshell. Not always easy. So I've basically, my corporate career started as a graduate with Nissan back in 1988. Yes, I am that old. And I went into the IT department and started learning the mainframe programming language. And this may crop up later on, but the trainer was frankly dreadful and could only explain the programming code in terms of other programming code, which is no use if you haven't done any coding before, right? So it was like, it was really difficult. So that set me on the path of, I'm really determined that nobody should struggle like I did. I passed all the aptitude tests. I'm an intelligent person. Why can't I learn this? It was because the trainer was dreadful. Anyway, so that also got me interested in learning and training. So a couple of years later, I started, Nissan paid for you to, if you wanted to learn other things in your own time, they would support that. So I, in my own time, did a training and a development qualification. But so meanwhile, Nissan, I was like, working on complicated manufacturing systems. And then it got to the point where they decided they wanted to bring in some apprentices. So the factory was new, pretty much new, and grew very quickly. So they decided they wanted some apprentices. And then somebody says, "Oh, Sue, you've been doing a training qualification, haven't you?" So, yes. So I developed the first training course for the apprentices there. So I really enjoyed that. Not too long after that, I was headhunted by a new startup, which was an outsourcing company with a difference in that it wasn't the usual outsourcing model. We were experts that the global banks couldn't tempt to London or New York or wherever. This was all in the north of England. So we were well paid. Why the hell would we want to go and live in London? No reason at all. So some people realised there was this pool of very experienced people who would not go and work in the major centres. So they came to us. So I did a lot of work with Morgan Stanley. And at first it was going to be a flat structure, and we were kind of brought in as kind of an expert support, as it were. Very quickly, I finished up running a team. So that was hilarious. So this turned the outsourcing model totally on its head. So I was running a team of Morgan Stanley employees as an outsourced person. And so it went from there. Our company wanted to grow really quickly, and its model was headhunting and poaching people. You can only poach and headhunt so many people. You run out of the cherry-picked people that you want. But we needed to grow. We had a lot of corporate work coming in from like Morgan Stanley and various others. So then it was like, Sue, didn't you say you've written a training program in this language is called Natural? And haven't you done that? Yes, I have. Ah, right, okay. Right, you're not doing any more project work. You're out of that. You're our training person. And I think in a few years, so we would then recruit very experienced people, but teach them in that programming language. So that's what I was doing. So I was an IT trainer. Then I kind of grew the training function, and then as a deeper relationship with our clients, I then finished up being part of Morgan Stanley's IT graduate training scheme. Again, a hilarious kind of let's tip the outsourcing model. So I used to spend a lot of time down in London, ironically, teaching Morgan Stanley graduates the mainframe programming thing. So, mainframe programming was still a thing then. So then I was doing two jobs. So I was creating developing the training function. So then I had a fully remote team. Again, this is 25 years ago when remote working wasn't really a thing, and having a remote team wasn't a thing. I had a remote team. So we had 5 offices across the north of England at this point. And so I then took somebody from each of the offices who wanted to learn training skills. And then I grew a team of in-house trainers because one person couldn't do everything that needed doing.
Yeah.
We were learning. I brought a big learning management platform in as well, so people could learn different programming languages and stuff in their own time. So and all of those people, I think there was 5, have all since left the IT industry and have gone to be teachers. So that was really, it's been really nice that I actually encouraged. So, people have gone in actual schools. Somebody went over to China, teaching English over there, all over. So that's been really fascinating as a side point. Life changed. And I just thought, this corporate thing, I'm absolutely sick of it. I'm sick of London. I'm sick of all of this. I just cannot. There was a lot of other things that went on, but I shan't go into that. So in a nutshell, I walked away from that career, had an unexpected child, unexpectedly moved to Ireland, then went to France and lived in France for 7-8 years. Whilst I was in France, when my son finally went to school, it was like, I thought, right, what shall I do? And the only employment opportunities really in rural France were the local supermarket, if you were really lucky, or the chicken factory. I didn't fancy the chicken factory, and I was well down on the list of people who would ever get a job at the supermarket because I was English. Yes, I could speak French, but right, what shall I do? So then I thought, the internet's kind of taken off while I've been out going mouldy. So I had to learn about that. So I learned all about internet marketing and found a company called VA Classroom, a virtual assistant training. I thought, yes, this is a good way of learning internet marketing and all the stuff, and kind of got involved with them. Long story short, finished up being their technical trainer. And so I did client services for a long time. So I've served global clients in video marketing and all sorts of things. Talking to the guy the founder of Freelance University one day, he said, he says, you've done training. Yeah, I did all these things. He says, you've been sitting under my nose. I've been looking for you for years, and here you are. So it wasn't me specifically, but kind of me as the kind of skills. So that then brought on as a freelancer, I was still doing services as well, providing support for Freelance University. And so then I started to really get into course creation. So every couple of months I would create a new course. So I've created them on all the common platforms. So we've got, MailChimp and Asana and Dubsado, and I did Pinterest and Teachable and there's Zapier, there's that many, Pinterest, Canva, Teachable, there's so many. So I was like, doing those. I was supporting their students. I was one of their business mentors as well. So I was busy in their community, teaching all of this, supporting people with their VA business and freelance business and so forth. One of the courses that they started off was podcasting. So I did their original podcast course that somebody else did. There was no, they finished up with nobody to support that or nobody with any experience. So I kind of stepped up and says, if you want me to answer questions about podcasting, I'm happy to do that. That was one of the ins of me being one of their mentors. But then I started offering podcasting services. I thought this is easier to market because nobody believes a person can have experience in so many things. It's true. So I thought, podcast marketing. So again, this was back in 2016 when podcasting was just starting to get a bit more mainstream. So I thought I needed to have a podcast because I did not feel that you can authentically offer podcasting services if you don't have your own podcast.
Yeah.
That just does not work for me. What could I do? The thing is always, well, what's your passions? What's your hobbies? Well, mine is embroidery and textile art. So the two extremes of my personality is, for a long time, I worked with code that wrote code 30 years ago before it was a thing. And I like messing around with embroidery and textile art. How is this true? I've realised it's opposite ends of creativity. They're both very creative. So I thought, right, I'll do a podcast on textile art. And everyone was saying, how the hell's that going to work, Sue? It's a visual topic. I said, yes, but we all sit and talk about it. So that's what I'm going to do. Started with 3 friends in Yorkshire who were brave guinea pigs in 2017. Very quickly, it went global. I'm like, oh, crikey, I've got people literally from all over the world listening in because there wasn't really one. There were a few kind of American people doing sort of a lot of quilting and things, but not how I was doing it. So there we are. So hilariously, top ranked podcast on textile art, which then was like my hobby. And I never monetized it or anything. It just took a huge amount of time and effort. As you know, running a podcast is not easy. Don't anybody ever think it's easy, anyone listening. For God's sake, it's not. It seems it, but there's a huge amount of work involved. Anyway, so the podcast. So I was interviewing textile artists about their art, their business, the story. There's always a story behind all these things.
Yeah.
And then, of course, in the beginning of 2020, the good old pandemic kind of attacked us all. And a lot of the artists were, have different streams of income coming in. And right. A lot of them teach in-person classes and also exhibit as well as selling art. All of a sudden, big chunks of their revenue was cancelled and closed. There was no in-person classes. There was no exhibitions, etc. And then a few people, I started getting this trickle of inquiries. Sue, you know about computers and the internet and things like that, don't you? Do you know anybody who could teach me how to create an online course? And I just went, go. That was me. Because I'd never talked about online courses. Meanwhile, as I was doing this podcast, I was creating all of these courses and being a mentor to all these online freelancers. But the two things, it was like the Berlin Wall stuck in the middle of them all. The two worlds didn't collide at all. It was really, when I think about it, absolutely ridiculous. What was I thinking about or not thinking about? So that's when I just thought, hang on a minute, I can bring these things together now. I've got this accidental audience, and there's a subset in there of people who listen who are the textile artists who want to be able to bring a different stream of income and not be reliant on in-person classes, but they're really good at their creativity and their art, not so good at the technical stuff. Not everyone's like me, obviously. And also, I have an audience. We tend to attract an audience like us, So I've got this audience of ladies in their mid, 50s onwards, pretty much, who are all going, but Sue, we don't know anything about computing and the internet and stuff, will you teach us? And I don't want this to sound awful, but they don't really want to learn from somebody younger who whizzes the mouse around and goes too fast. It's just a fact of life. I hope I'm not offending anyone here, but it's just, this is true. People want to learn in the way in which they want to learn, with the teacher that is the right teacher for them, which goes right back full circle to that first absolutely dreadful tech teacher who I nearly got sacked because I could not learn. Once I got somebody to help me, I was away and literally was then one of the experts in this thing which wrote code. Code which wrote code wasn't really a thing 30 years ago. So it wasn't me being stupid. It was the damage of a poor teacher. So that comes right back full circle to what I'm really focused on is now, if I was a Venn diagram, there's 3 circles now, Jag. There's technology, there's training, and there's textile art. And in the middle, there's me. So there we are. That was a bit rambling, wasn't it, for a short nutshell? But
not at all. It was fascinating. And the 3 things that you said, I think if you add another one, it becomes the Japanese term called ikigai.
Yes, it is. Ikigai, yes.
I think everybody is somewhere trying to find their ikigai, and your story, the way you narrated it, was like as if your life knew, you know what, I know what exactly you need to do, because in the future you need all these things, so just do these.
It's really true. And honestly, whilst you're in the weeds of the intense corporate career, there was a lot of personal things went on. So I'll share one little story with you, which was the catalyst for one of the catalysts for why I walked away from my corporate career. So on September the 11th, 2001, that's an important date. Yeah. I was working down in Canary Wharf, in the financial district in London where Morgan Stanley's offices were. We were in all the skyscrapers.
Right.
I was teaching, it was a really dull subject called JCL, Job Control Language. It's just full of dots and squiggles and lines, and it's horrible. But that's what makes the mainframes work. So I was teaching this. It's just, oh God, it's boring, right? So trying to make something like this interesting, challenge. The day turned out a lot more not boring than I'd planned. So there we were, teaching away. And the classroom had some big, screens. And so on a break time, we'd sometimes put the news on, or the TV, something like that. So somebody says, "Oh, Sue, can we just put the news on? There's something going on." So, yeah, okay. So there we were, the images of those planes bashing into the World Trade Center. And several of those students just started screaming and crying because they had friends who were also graduates who were in those buildings.
Right.
And that was like the most traumatic, when you suddenly think, hang on a minute, in this moment, I'm teaching, I'm responsible for this group of, I was in my kind of mid-30s, they were in their early 20s. I thought, oh, crikey, I'm in charge of these people. And we were not in the main Morgan Stanley building. So we didn't have, they were growing out of the building. So we was in some other offices in a nearby building without all the corporate support. And I was thinking, right, what do we do now? So then we got a message, look, we're kind of all on alert because we're a financial centre. We don't know if this is going to happen. Flights have been stopped, just like stay where you are, kind of like, pay attention. And so shortly afterwards, we then had to evacuate the evacuated Canary Wharf, and I had to walk back. I was staying in a flat nearby. Right. So it was just like, do you know what? Actually, I've had enough of this. I don't want to be in London. I don't want to be stuck in a place like this with this kind of thing going on. I'm a country girl from Yorkshire. It was just like, and it was one of those moments, Jack, one of those moments where, again, the role of the teacher really kind of came forward, and kind of then going from teaching something really dull, the dullest computer topic ever, to dealing now with screaming, very, very upset people. It was just like, So that was one of the catalysts that I just thought I've had enough of doing this. So I'm going back to Yorkshire, thank you. So yeah, it was quite interesting. But yeah, our path. It when you're in all of that, you can't really see why on earth you're doing all of this. Why is this happening? But it's only in the last couple of years. So I'm like, I'm 58 now. I'll say that I'm 58. It's only really in the last couple of years when I sat down and thought, how does all this make sense? And yes, and I have sat down with an ikigai and, what's your passion and your thing that you
Yeah,
can make money
yeah,
out of and what do people want and all what can you do and all those things. And that's when I just thought, hang on a minute, this all now fits in
yeah,
quite beautifully, actually. This seemingly random selection of things. Somebody who's really technical, who really likes embroidery, of like what, and has got training skills and all the internet stuff. Oh, yes, it finally fits. So if anybody's sitting there thinking, how on earth am I going to make these random things fit together? Truly, there is a way. There is a way. It will work, but it's not always obvious. And it's not the first
yeah,
thing. It's not the first thing. I've been working online since 2010. So I've evolved through internet marketing services and podcasting services and, this, all sorts of things to get now where I am thinking. So I'm always feeling as if I'm like not starting again. It's evolving, as things evolve. So yeah, thought I'd just
yeah.
throw that story in for you.
No, that's great because this kind of reminds me of a very funny. So in India, right, there are a lot of languages, and Hindi is, of course, the most spoken language. But then I speak a language called Tamil, and there's an actor, in a movie who says, I think when somebody asks, "Oh, you know what? How did you achieve this?" He says this. See, this takes certain combination of a blind stupidity and a little bit of confidence. What I mean when I say blind stupidity is not negative, right? I mean, people,
It's true.
when you do
It's
not have
true.
some clarity and you take a decision, it may become stupid. But if that's what it takes, to try different things, because different things are the ones that fall into place
Yeah.
together to to make something out of it. So it just reminded me of that. And sometimes it's a little comforting to know that some of the stupid things that you may do, well, who knows in the future, a little bit of hope. So
It will, and that's the thing that I've really realized is you need confidence in yourself, Jag. Confidence in yourself that take that next step.
yeah,
Just try, take that next step. It doesn't matter how little it is, it's a step forward. And this is when I get really frustrated with the kind of big internet guru people who it's like, oh, well, I've made 42 million and I've done this and these things and I run an 8-figure business and blah, blah, blah. It's not most people's reality. And
yeah,
the position from which they're talking is they've forgotten what it was like pretty much at the
yes,
start.
yes,
And people see that one person and don't always realize that one person now will have a massive team behind them, you know. And so people say, oh, look, they're everywhere. They're on all these platforms and they're doing all these things. And, oh, how can they do it? And I'm struggling. Well, because you're one person and they've got a big team and
team,
they now have a money-making machine. And that's what it
right,
is. It's a marketing money machine. They put money in the top and people and resources and plop, 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 money comes out of the bottom, more of it. And that's not the reality of most people. And I think it can be overwhelming when we then start to chase somebody else's path that's on a completely different universe. You follow
yeah,
your own path, have your own confidence in what you're doing. And I always used to say, and I've experienced this so many times, if you've got a rubbish client, and let's face it, some clients are rubbish, I'm going to say this, honest, they are rubbish. And you just think, really, I really don't want this client, actually. I don't want to be turning money away, but they are just a pain. And quite often, if you do think, right, do you know what, that's it, I'm firing that client. You get rid of them The
Right.
door opens every single time. That door
Yeah.
will open into somebody far better, far more suitable, or a better opportunity. So I'm a great believer. I'm not a religious person at all, not
Right.
at all. But I am a great believer in something like that. Every time I've been in that situation, I thought, "Yeah, this is rubbish. I right, have the courage of my own convictions and stop that thing. Something better opens up almost immediately." So yeah.
Yeah. True. So before we get into, the dynamics and the details of what you do about course creation, a couple of things I just wanted to touch on a lighter note. You mentioned a few times about, London, which came out like, not a lot of people like London, or, you wanted to get away from London. What's that all about?
Well, yeah. So, anybody familiar with the geography of the UK? London's down in the south. That's like the epicenter of the country. I live up in the north, in Yorkshire. It's a more
Right.
rural. I've always lived in quite a rural environment, and there was just didn't want to go and live in that big city. It's exciting to go down for a couple of weeks, or to go and work for a few weeks at a time and then go home again, but just didn't want that kind of big city life. I've always been actually quite a country girl, and I am actually a massive introvert, and nobody ever understands that. So I really like to spend a lot of my time on my own, being quiet, with my art, or whatever it is. So yeah, I just didn't want to have that big city thing. And I think the older you get, the less inclined you are, because all of the things that you want to be in a big city for have less and less interest as well. So yeah, so that was it. But that was, as I say, the people who formed that company really understood. Here's back to a niche again. Here's a unique niche here. They knew there was this pool of people, particularly in the north of England, working at places like Nissan and for the British Railways, and I think the police. Several large organisations use this very specific mainframe programming language, and
Right.
they knew where those sites were. They knew where there was a pool of people. So, hey, let's set up an office there and poach everybody that was there. But it was down to that niche. They
Right.
realised that the large global banks who've got their fancy offices in Canary Wharf, in the middle of New York, in the middle of wherever, they struggle, and they were struggling then and probably struggle even more now. They were struggling to get that high level of staff that they wanted, because
Right.
there was all those folks sitting up in the north of England where cost of living was a lot cheaper.
Mm.
The enjoyment of living was much nicer, and we were on good money. So actually, we were better off because we weren't paying as much out in house prices and commuting and all that stuff. So
Right.
why would we go and move to those centres? Now,
Right.
again, obviously, the whole kind of work from home movement has really taken off over the last few years. But as I say, I had a fully remote team. I quite often would say, I don't know what, I had an hour's commute. I don't know, I'm going to stay at home today or work from home, or I would have a day when I was down in London. So the connectivity was much more challenging.
Mm.
25 years ago, it was still possible. Of course, we had all those hilarious audio only telephone conferences as well
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
endure. But yeah, so that was it really. It was just, you know, me personally, I didn't want to, be down in a
Got
big
it.
city. It was exciting for a few weeks at a time, but then I could escape back to
Right.
Yorkshire. So, but I know
Got
a
it.
lot of younger people want to be in the excitement of the cities. So,
City.
yeah.
Right. Talking about the niche, it when I was reading, what you had sent to me, and then when I was trying to learn more about you, it took a while for me to connect the your podcast and the virtuality works, right? Okay, now here's something, which is a passion. Sue's passion is to talk about. And then I realized, okay, the people that you talk to are teaching something in person and they want to digitize that. And wow, what a
Yes,
connection.
yes, yes, yes.
And what a niche that is. It gives so much of hope and, so much of positive encouragement to people to figure out their own deep niches, right? I
Yes,
thought
very much
we
so.
could probably talk about that. So I'm sure when people come to you about creating courses, I'm sure now you're not only catering to people who are in the embroidery or the textile art. I'm sure you've got a lot of other people creating a lot of other courses. When it comes to picking niche, what do what do you have to teach? What do you advise people on? How do they do that?
I mean, to be fair, the people who come to me are already fairly niche and already, because again, they've already been teaching that thing in some way or other, or
Right,
have been offering like a physical service in something and have realized that there's that plateau, isn't there? You've got no more hours in the day. You have to do something digital to be able to expand these days. So quite
right,
often people are always quite in a unique thing, and then then the really great question, which is related to the niche thing, is somebody will say, "Yeah, but why would anybody pay me? Because there's all that stuff on YouTube." Oh, glad you asked, because that's all about being very niche. So I'll say to them, "Well, just because you teach maybe a certain style of embroidery or a certain way of doing pottery or something on those lines, you're not the only person in the world who does that. You're not the only person in the world who teaches it. But there's something unique about the way in which you are, about your style, about the way in which you maybe push things in a contemporary way or in way in which you're very, very traditional.
right,
Um, there's are you quite a serious person? Are you quite a funny person? Are you do you want to push the boundaries? Do you want to be traditional? Do you want to have quirky kind of, then there's all the images, isn't there? Some people focus on, say, wildlife or scenery or abstract, or when you look at it like that, the possibilities are endless. It is
right,
infinite what we
right,
can do. And so although you may originally think, oh, there's loads of people teach embroidery, yeah, but not everybody's looking for just embroidery, are they? They're looking for a specific style or a specific design or a specific approach or something very traditional or something very modern, or off it goes. And you can do that with every single topic. So the same question used to be, oh, yeah, but Sue, if you're going to create a podcast, there's loads of podcasts on, insert topic here. And this was like years ago now. How many podcasts have we got now? Well over 1 million. When I started, there was about 300,000 or something. So it's the same thing. It's about being niche, like you are with yours, Jack, very specific, talking about kind of knowledge entrepreneurs.
right,
So it's the same question. And so I looked one day and thought, right, let's look at, just picked an example of photography. Right, so I'm going to look at the Apple Podcasts charts on photography. So I rank on there on visual arts. So I used to think, well, let's have a look at visual arts. So visual arts, photography. If somebody said to me, Sue, I want to thinking about creating a photography podcast, then you'd look and you'd go, oh my word, look, out of 200 in the top 200, I counted them, 66% were photography ones, something like that. Was it 30? It was a high percentage, was all these photography ones. But when you looked, there was very few that were duplicates. Because
right,
what have you got in photography? You've got the business of being a photographer. You've got wedding photography, beachwear photography, babies, landscape, abstract, modern, people talking about the equipment, people talking about the business. Exactly the same. So any topic, you can go down and down and down, and you will still find enough people in that niche that want you. And the more you do that, the more easier it is to stand out and the more attractive you are to those people, because they'll go, oh, yeah, Sue knows about embroidery and textile art. She knows about corsage. She can teach the technology stuff.
right,
Sue's the perfect person to help me. I'm not the perfect person to help lots of other people. because they'll be bored to death with the examples about embroidery and textile art. I mean, I do have people who do like pottery and other hands-on things. Somebody's like a massage therapist, but they want to do like mindfulness and meditation. But it's still like an active thing, isn't it? You know, it's not talking through PowerPoint slides. So those are the kind of people that I tend to attract. As I say, in my kind of age group, mostly women who are scared about the techie stuff, as they all talk about it, because then I meet their needs. Some younger person wouldn't want to learn from me because they'll probably think she's old and boring, you know. So it's just like you find your teacher and dive into your niche. So again, anybody listening to all this rambling here from this mad woman, it's like really have your confidence that you are special, you are unique, you have unique things, and there will be people. I found a course, you know, I always come back to, you know, you'll do the same. You're always looking to see like what's going on. And something, you know, ads pass you by, don't they? Or you'd see things, you think, oh, what's that? So I was on Facebook and I'd seen something. And somebody was selling a course on Vampirology 101. Vampirology. Who knew that was a thing? Who knew it was a thing? Right? So I don't want to offend any vampirologists here, but this just made me laugh. But it's a very powerful case study. So Vampirology 101 was selling for something like £120. So it was not cheap, £120. And it was one of those like course platforms where you could see how many people had signed up for it was a bit like a Udemy kind of thing. You know, it was a course marketplace, a specialist course marketplace where this thing was on. And let me just remember this. So it was £120 and there was nearly 1,000 people apparently had bought this course. So let's just do the maths there. How much had that person made, apparently, from their Vampirology 101? Can you get any more niche than that?
Oh, no.
Who'd have thought it, you know? Is this thing even true? What on earth would you do a course on? I don't know, but there was people who paying 120 quid for it, and there was 1,000 of them. Woohoo! They've made £125,000. Well done, them.
In fact, it sounds like the more niche you are, the more rare your topic is, you'd probably, be that lonely person, that not a lot of competition for you then. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I used to again. So the podcast examples are the same. You know, I found a podcast I used to quote as a sample example of this on looking after chameleons. A really popular podcast on looking after chameleons. Yes, chameleons, fascinating things. People want to look after them. And this is years ago. There was a podcast on how to look after chameleons. So although we're talking here about online courses, the analogies about being unique apply from podcasting. It's identical. It's identical. Right. How do you find that tribe of people? How do you find your tribe? That's it. And it is definitely, being as specific as you can be. So don't ever think that you're too niche. Think about Vampirology 101 and looking after chameleons.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. People would have gotten an idea by now. So while you were talking about, the kind of people that approach you to get help from you, you said, they might already be doing a physical service, right? And I just want to understand, are these people trying to create courses as a supplementary income for, in addition to the physical service are they giving? Or do these courses serve as a marketing tool for the physical service that they're already doing? Or what other purposes does it serve?
Right. Yeah. So that's a really good point, because people often just think, oh, well, I'll create a course because I want to teach things. But a course can be a really valuable way of freeing up your time on repetitive stuff. the sort of like, onboarding, or there might be certain things in a service that you just think, oh, I've got another one of those to do today. I wish I could clone myself. If you hear yourself saying that, that's when a course is needed to do that. So you can use a course to free up your time from the kind of mundane, repetitive stuff, to then free up yourself for the stuff that you're actually unique and talented and, get more money from as a service. The people typically who come to me are very much the arty, crafty, folks, couple of therapists and things. But so what they're trying to do is balance out their income to have a more resilient business model. And so
Right.
they're not reliant on purely in-person things like so many were. And it's quite interesting because, the main impact of the pandemic is now 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And although it was a horrible time for lots of people, memories seem to be fading in that people thinking, oh, I won't bother now. I was going to do an online course, but do you know what? I won't bother. I'm quite happy doing my in-person classes back again. And I'm there going, oh, you're going back round in the same circle. It is so important that we don't rely on one source of income, one client, one thing. So the people who come to me are usually already teaching that thing in person. And of course, we're talking about mostly people would have to go and hire a venue to do that. So they have to travel, and we're talking about arts and crafts and things. So they've got boxes of stuff to take with them. So you have to go in the car. Price of fuel's gone shooting up. The price of heating these venues has shot up. We've really suffered this last winter with fuel prices, and it's obviously colder in the UK. So they're carrying boxes around, and there's a whole load of hassle involved in creating an in-person class. And so as much as people enjoy it, and I enjoy doing the in-person classes and it's nice. Yes, it is. But you can look at it in that, why not make that the special treat, the kind of VIP experience, the thing that you're not spending every damn weekend doing, which is, you run out of weekends, and most people want to learn a hobby, a creative thing at the weekend because they're working in the week. So, that's where I'm really trying to help and support people, and to say to them, because you're already teaching this thing, you've probably been teaching this thing for many years, bearing in mind the age profile of my kind of followers. And most of them have been teaching this thing for a long time, right? And so they already know they have got a massive advantage over people who think, do you know, I think I'll create an online course, but I don't really know what the topic is, which is what the big gurus, that's their marketing angle, isn't it? Hey, I can teach you how to create a course. It doesn't matter if you don't have a clue what you're doing. It doesn't matter if you don't have a topic. We'll mash that out. And so half the course is spent in like doing what's taken me 30 odd years of like, well, where's me ikigai? Where's me niche? How can all these things fit together?
Right.
And so people spend a lot of time in these course creation courses doing all of that kind of thing. And then the actual creating videos and filming your hands and putting them on a course platform, or where can you put them? Just like, let's just sweep that under the carpet, and then people are like, how do I do this? I've got my idea now, but I don't know what to do. So again, from my point of view, to stand out and be different, you're like, why would somebody come to me when they could go to one of these big gurus? Well, because you're going to get me. You don't get fobbed off with associate coaches and that kind of thing. You'll get me, and you'll get a small environment and a lot of personal attention. Right. So anybody who's currently running in-person classes, I really do encourage you to understand that you have a massive advantage, because you know what sells, because it's selling. It's been sustaining you over these years. You know where people get stuck. You know what people want to learn next. You know what people say, oh, do you know, I'd really fancy, how can you do this thing or that thing? You've got all of that. Don't underestimate the power of that. So therefore, to create a version, what do you need to do? You need to learn the techie stuff.
Right.
So, and I haven't come across anybody talking about it in those terms. Everyone's like, oh, well, this is how you create a course and you do these things and you need to do a pilot launch, you need to test the market. No, you've tested the market over the last however many years you've been running this class. People want to buy. Oh, it's full now. Oh, there's another side. Oh, my courses fill up really quickly. Yippee. Let's get a version online done. So, yeah, I forgot what the question was now. I was rambling on. But, you was asking about, is it part of the business? So I'm really trying to encourage people that this is part of their creative business and it's going to complement what they're already doing, give them more financial resilience, give them, resilience. And also, again, as people are getting older, people have got health issues and they can't physically lift all the boxes with all the stuff. Or, if you're teaching people with sewing machines, they're quite heavy as well. So it's really trying to help people to add extra resilience and control into their business. I mean, it still works if somebody hasn't got an idea of everyone always has an idea. They may not have been teaching it before, but then, we go through the other processes. So there's kind of two processes at play. And I'm just on the cusp of moving really deep diving into the helping people who've got an in-person class, because it cuts out a lot of that other stuff that the big guru people have cornered the market in. I don't need to compete against them. It's a waste of time.
Got it, Sue. So, and in the, when we spoke about what some of the things that we can discuss, you had mentioned in the document that you had shared, very interesting, finding opportunities through relationships. Do you also mean collaborations by this?
Not particularly collaborations, but when I've thought about things that have been of major impact in my life and career, it all boils down to a chance comment with somebody in a conversation with somebody. There was, it was a personal connection. So, for example, going, right back to day dot, when I got involved with the this code, that rote code thing, that was a specialist role that they were thinking, well, who the hell can do this? And the guy who was what was called the database administrator, so he was the god of the database, right, and quite a very direct, quite grumpy person, just turned around and said, because it all revolved around him, he said, well, the only person I'm going to work with is Sue. And they're all going, because I wasn't very popular because I was quite outspoken, right?
Right.
And so it's like, so I finished up doing that, okay, because he wanted me to work with him on it. The apprentice thing that started, like giving it to two of the kind of, younger golden boys at the time. Oh, they can do that, without actually thinking that these guys had no idea how to teach anybody anything. And it was only afterwards when somebody said, why aren't Sue doing it? Because she's like the only person in the department who has actually even studied this topic. She's already the expert because she's been doing this thing, and she's got a training qualification. Right, yeah. So that was begrudging, opportunities. But even getting headhunted to this new company was somebody somewhere, one of our friends had said, oh yeah, I've heard about this company over in Liverpool, they want to talk to people. Do you want to come out and have a drink, can have a beer and a chat? Aye, all right. And a group of 15 of us, friends, we all left. We're all headhunted together, left Nissan and went to seed the new office.
Right.
The training course thing, oh, Sue, somebody said that you were training some folks at Nissan. Have you got your course? Yeah, yeah, I've got a copy of it. Right, that's it. We need to expand quickly. We need to, come on, you're going to have to start. You can train all these people who are experienced developers but don't know this language. Okay, yeah. and so it went on, the Morgan Stanley thing. That was, again, somebody else saying, oh, yeah, so we want to do that. We knew that they were lacking a trainer. So somebody says, oh, I'll tell you what, look, whack up, we'll send Sue down. Okay. And off it went. The opportunity with Freelance University, exactly the same. I put my hand up and said, look, I'll help you with podcasting. I'd already been a very active member of the community. So when they expanded and wanted some more business mentors, or wanted to form a team of business mentors, and the guy realised that he couldn't create all of these courses all on his own, then, it was like, oh, Sue, will you come along? I'm currently supporting the Embroiderers Guild over here in the UK. I've been a member of the Embroiderers Guild for a long time. And through the podcast and me talking about my course creation experience, they had a load of courses that were implemented by somebody who didn't actually really know anything about online courses. And there was a whole load of problems. And then eventually they were taken down. And so they wanted to bring this back up again. So, last year, so will you come and talk to us about online courses not from a volunteer point of view, from a, paid service kind of thing.
Right.
So
right.
I've been steering that through my podcast. I've been asked to do all sorts of things. I also now, so this is hilarious, right? So again, I'm very much an introvert in the fact that really, after this, I'll have to go and sit in a corner for like hours to recover. So I'm a social introvert, right? But through doing my podcast, the Embroiderers Guild have asked me to host live streams where I'm interviewing 2 artists with things. So I'm now like this kind of like a TV host almost, so I'm acting for them as the face on the screen. This evening I'm hosting an event for them with their course participants. So I'm running like a social event for the people who are studying their, working through their courses to add that personal dimension. So, it's really, really funny that from this like really, really techy background, here I am hosting events for the Embroiderers Guild, chatting with people. But yeah, that's what I mean about relationships. It's been very much, people have asked me to do things because they've seen me participate in something. They've heard me talking about what I was doing. For a long time, I was like the world's best kept secret. I used to hide behind my screen and, didn't really put my head above the parapet or anything.
Right.
And I just, a number of years ago, I thought, this has got to stop. You have to be visible. You have to do videos. You have to show your face. You have to have photos of yourself. And, and I made a big conscious, I'm going to do that. There's no reason to hide. So that's really what I meant about personal connections, is when I've sat and thought about all this mad journey to them 3 circles of that Venn diagram.
Yeah.
The major stepping stones have been, I've been asked to do something. People have come to me and found me. As I say, that turning point of, hey Sue, do you know anybody who could help us create an online course? Whoa.
Right.
Yeah, so that's really what I meant. Collaborations in terms of kind of the stuff that goes on. I haven't really done anything. I haven't really done any of that sort of thing, if that makes sense.
So you've been creating courses or creating content from a long time now, right? Have things changed, or how have things evolved, as when it comes to creating courses, as it was, at least 15 years back to now?
Right. So obviously the first courses I created were all very much written. They came in a big binder, and it was about this thick because it was full of, there was a lot of stuff to learn. And
Right.
at the time I was really into, it was a thing then called action-centered learning. It was action learning. So there was a lot in there about how to make these things interesting, get people moving and doing things and putting practical exercises in. Because before that, these things were damn dull. And we didn't have the technology to make them interesting either. The technology was slides on the projector on the wall behind you, and let's do a quick demo. I was doing really well if I could connect one of them projectors through to the mainframe computer terminal to do some quick demos. So it was quite challenging to make some of these what were in them really damn boring topics, and kind of interesting and lively. So, but it was the same old thing of get people doing things. You know, you don't want to be just droning on in front of slides and go and try. Well, we don't know how to do these things. Well, you will when you start trying. You know, just trust me. Start doing this thing, you'll start to learn. And so I'm very much of the opinion of just like guide people through the steps. So without them really even noticing that they're doing the steps, and then I'll go, right, look, you can do all of these things now. Woohoo! Well done. You didn't realise. Now, of course, we've got every possible gadget and widget and thing to
Right.
try and make all this as interesting as possible.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't forget that the person who's really, really important is the learner. You know, what is the student experience? And with all of these toys, are they a distraction? Are they actually helping the learner to learn? Some things yes, some things possibly no, you know. So in terms of training development and content, I think the trend is a good one, is to keep things short, micro learning. You know, people will throw
Right.
that around. And again, think of this action-centered learning. So there was a book that I really used to like, and it's called, let me just, I'll get the title slightly wrong. I'm just trying to peer around my computer onto my bookshelf, but it's something like How to Give It So They Get It. And it's by a lady called Sharon, I forgot, I'll give you the link. And it's only a thin, you know, it's a traditional thin book. And this woman has written a lot of books about developing interesting training and so on. And this follows basically the example of learning how to fly. You need a flight plan, you know, all the things. It's a really good book. And she's also got another one that I have on there, which is something like so many tips to make something interesting. I've totally forgotten the title, but things that work really well in person that you can adapt to online. So it still needs to be small, specific. You know, as I always say to people, one video, one thing. Make it a couple of minutes, 10 minutes at most, so that people can think, oh, do you know what? I've got half an hour before I have to go and get the kids or do whatever. Do you know what? I'm going to pop into that course I'm working on, and I'll watch a video and I'll do the exercise. So I always try and have, you know, an exercise, worksheets, things for people to think. You know, I'm very much a person, although I do everything online, I write notes with an actual old-fashioned pen and actual old-fashioned paper. And there's something about this, it's been proven, there's a different process goes on in your brain when you physically write as opposed to typing. It's quite fascinating, but it's different. And so I cannot write notes on the screen. And, you know, I sent you just a basic text file. So if I want to do brainstorming, I'll just create a basic.txt file, because then you're not worrying about the formatting or anything else. All you can do is type some words on. But I am an absolute note-taking scribbler. Yeah. But I think that it does help us learn. It's you're engaging another sense. You know, people are moving, the thinking, the writing, and as more senses you can bring into what you're doing, people will learn more. And that's even if it's just like a note, you know, so if I had a section of something that might be an 8 or 9 minute video, we might have explained 2 concepts or something. Right. Okay. And a lot of my stuff tends to be questions. Right. I want you to think about these things. Is it this? What about so-and-so? Have you thought about this? There's this, and this, which is appropriate to you. Go away and think about it. Because most times people go blundering into course creation because it's like, oh, it's actually easy, isn't it? Yeah, just like podcasting's easy on one level. But to get something that works, that helps transform people from where they started to where they want to go, it needs quite a lot of thought. And again, it's how does it work for you as the business owner, and how does it work for the students? So I think this trend of micro learning is a good one. And let's be honest, as our cameras get higher and higher definition, and as video records in higher and higher definition, videos just get bigger and bigger and bigger. So if you can be very, very controlled about one video, one thing, 10 minutes, it's a much better learning experience, and it's a lot easier for you because you're not then trying to, the hardest thing our computers can do is render videos. And I've got miss this old fashioned. I've got a fast desktop, a massive desktop computer down here, which was a machine I had built. It's actually a gaming spec machine. So it's got good video cards in, it's fast, etc., etc. Because I know the thing that takes the time is video rendering,
Right.
So if you keep it good for the students, it's good for you as well, because you're not like 3 hours later waiting for something to render, So that's, I think, a trend. There's lots of things we can do, and there's like gamification, and again, for some audiences, that's not really. For my load of midlife ladies, is gamification, do they just give a damn? No, because they're not rushing to do something. They're learning something that they want to, they want to help people learn something which is actually quite mindful and creative and can be very slow as embroidery too. So, they kind of like, gamification for my audience is absolutely no use at all. For a different audience, it can make the difference between, people really enjoying the course. So it's back down to your niche. Who's your audience? What are they trying to learn? And how can you serve them with a good student experience there? Did that answer anything about trends? I think it might have done.
It did. I think I asked you, how has it changed? And from a technological point of view, it's changed a lot. And, I think now it's all about being bite-sized, little. Attention
Absolutely,
span is going
bite-sized.
low. The social media is designed in a way, you get 30-second reels, and, you don't have patience to watch something more than 30 seconds, 15 seconds. So, that's right.
That's been a big change, actually, the attention span of people. But but I think regardless of all of that, keep it small. But it's always been good practice to keep things modular and kind of small. And although there was that thing of like, well, a school lesson's an hour, so let's just keep it going for an hour. University lectures, oh my word, let's just fill an hour with somebody scrolling on a chalkboard. You'd learn nothing. So, so I think there's a better understanding of how people learn, and the technology can support that and provide variety. But let's not forget that the basic tenets of teaching somebody something, that hasn't changed. We've just got better at it, really. And then, of course, there's all this AI stuff getting thrown into the mix, which frankly, at the moment, I think people are going to get their fingers burnt, because you cannot replace somebody's personality and somebody's experience and somebody's knowledge with something that a machine, because I'm a coder, something that a machine is like cobbled together from what's already there. So, it's like the Wild West again, isn't it, with all of that?
I had a chat with another trainer from the US, and we were talking about AI. And I think AI, right, in a way, is bringing back the exact value of humans for what they are. Because if you look at it like that way, right? Because yes, AI
Totally
is going to do all the grunt work, good for us, but can it replace us? No. And that's where our value comes back up there again. Because I've already seen videos on my Instagram timeline where people have tried to replicate human beings talking like real human beings using AI. And it's boring. And that's when you want to go back to see real people. So I hope AI is going to push people to people again and use AI the way it is supposed to be used.
Exactly. And then if you think about, again, back to my niche, what are people teaching them? How to physically make something with your hands, with material, with fabric, with art, with something. A finished product, an image of a finished product could be produced, but you can tell that it's not,
Yeah.
and so again, for my kind of niche, I'm not that too worried about it,
Yeah.
because it's a different thing. It's not like people creating a course about creating a course to help people create a course. Yes, I do that, but it's based in a different niche with different examples that AI really wouldn't be able to come up with, because it doesn't sit there with fabric and thread, because it's not a real person. So, but again, you can, there's all these things, isn't there, out there now of like, just knock up a course, just put a few keywords in and we'll knock up a course outline. Where's the value in that? Where's the value in that? It's not bringing out as you say, us as people with our skills and ability. And just like a few years ago, it was like, hey, you can create an ebook just by getting all your blog posts together and sending it off to a VA and just let them cobble it together and voila, an ebook. You can tell when you're reading quite a low quality ebook, you know exactly how it was made, because really it's pretty rubbish. And so do you then want to go and buy the thing that ebook was going to sell from that person? No, because it was a rubbish thing.
Yeah.
If they'd have sat down and actually properly written a book, yes, because I can see their experience. So this is like, crappy ebooks on steroids, isn't it? In a lot of respects, it's going to be crappy courses where it's just an amalgam of everything else that exists already.
Yeah.
The exact opposite of what we were talking about before about a niche and people. So yeah, people people are very, very important in all of this. When we're teaching somebody, it's not just a crank out something as fast as you can with AI and whoopee, look, yeah, they're going to have a very short shelf life of those sorts of things. That's my old-fashioned approach to that. I love the technology, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I have to stop myself from going down that rabbit hole of like, how does this work? Because that's what again, something similar a long time ago. For me, it's fascinating. But but me delving down into the nuts and bolts of it is not serving my audience of midlife ladies who want to know how they can teach people how to do the thing that they're really good at. So yeah, I'm really resisting getting too dragged into the nuts and bolts of it, because I just find it fascinating.
Got it. So you also added this topic as part of the things that we could talk about. You said don't build your business on something that you don't have much control. Or what did you mean by that? Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Right. So this might make me sound a bit stroppy. Do you know what stroppy is? A bit like bossy. So what I see people struggling with, and again, it's that same kind of audience of, so, again, anyone listening, think about, I'm talking about the audience who I serve. So midlife ladies who are not very confident with technology. It's like, oh, we didn't do it at school. Well, I was the only girl who did the very basic stuff when it first came out. So they haven't got the confidence, and they haven't got the kind of background. So for them, it's just a big hurdle. Oh God, the techie stuff, I can't do that. So what you can see is all the free stuff that out there, or the stuff that the keeping control bit comes when people haven't understood the important strategic reason why that platform is as it is. I think I've lost you. Oh, you froze then. We're back. Yeah. So I see with people who it's not their thing, it's not their forte, and so then off they go trying to cobble together. They'll go and have a look on YouTube for all these free things, And YouTube's really great for maybe if you're very specific about something that you want to learn, and you type in a very specific thing. So I do it a lot. How does this thing work in this thing? Right, get an answer back. If you're trying to understand a process, and YouTube's no use whatsoever for that, because you're not being given the stuff in the right order, in the right process. YouTube's a video marketing platform, and so people then stumble into using a piece of software that somebody they've seen online's using, but they don't understand what the decision point behind that was. Or a lot of things, you'll find that video hosting may or may not be included. Again, as long as you know, then that's fine. But a lot of people will go into something without realizing that maybe it wasn't included, or it's a higher price because it is included. And and so I see people struggle a lot with trying to get some technology working when they don't understand basically how it's supposed to work. And again, if you're on with the free things, you've got no support, you've got no guarantee of, is this thing true? Is it up to date? Can the person even actually teach that topic? So there's a whole issue of not having control and not understanding what you're trying to do, and then therefore it takes so much longer with a massive amount of struggle. When really finding the right teacher with the right thing cuts out all of that learning curve. You learn the things that you actually need to do to focus on actually getting your course out there. So that's part of, one of the things that I just, and it makes me really sad, Jag, when people say to me, I'm just trying to get this bit sorted out. And it's like 5 months later, how are you getting on? Well, and it's people who I follow or, see, so they're not part of my course or anything, but they thought they'll just go and, wing it themselves and dig in and give it a try. Months and months and months have passed by. They're really frustrated. They've wasted so much time, and time is our most valuable thing. So, I've got quite a thing about, it makes me sad. It makes me sad to see people wasting so much brain power and effort on something that they're never going to get right because it's not their thing.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. For example, the way I'd interpret is, if there might be a YouTube, there might be a Facebook, there might be an Instagram, Pinterest, so on and so forth, but you got to know what to use for what. For example, Instagram is a very visual medium, and Twitter is a very text-based medium, and to the point sort of a medium. And I see that some people post videos on Twitter and text on Instagram, and but the audience are there for different reasons, right? So and this applies to all of the things, which leads me to my next question, right? One of the most important topics when it comes to course creators is the hundreds of platforms that are out there that help you host it and then, give you a certain structure. You don't have to build a website at all. You just have to go upload your course and everything's taken care of. So how do you go about choosing it? And in your view, what are the truly important components that make a good platform for course sellers?
So the two important components from my point of view are...
Sorry, course creators, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, for course creators. So the two important elements are ease of use. Right? And secondly, what student experience does it give? So for most people, the worst choice is to start trying to build something on their WordPress website. I run WordPress websites. I've been using them for years. I know how they work. A lot of people have got a WordPress website that they've cobbled together, or somebody did for them and didn't hand it over very well. And guess what? They never update it. They don't update the plugins, and so nothing works because it's not their thing, because they'd rather sit in a corner and do their art and their embroidery. And the number, if I had £1 for every person who's come to me with like, oh, my website's broke, or this has happened and that's happened, bearing in mind, I don't offer website services and I never have, but I have dug people out of a massive hole as a favour loads of times. So I do say to people, unless you know exactly how to look after your WordPress website, then you're going to have to start installing yet more plugins. And anybody who's done lots of things with WordPress, they all start to work against each other, and their website gets slower and worse. It's a security hazard. So what's their options? Their options are pay somebody to look after it for them, which they quite often can't afford. It's another thing to do then, because keeping people busy with work is a skill in its own right, particularly if you don't know how this thing works. How the hell can you ask somebody to do something? So you've got no control. Right. It's back to the control. If you don't know how that thing should work, you are at the whim, at the liberty of somebody else. And that doesn't always work out as a very good relationship. Again, I've seen this because I've been here so long. I've seen all of this. So I do say to people, please, if you have a WordPress website, yes, it's an option. Yes, you could put your plugins. There's some good plugins. But if you don't have those skills, you're going to have to pay somebody to do it. So it's not going to be cheaper, and you have to pay for the plugins. You might as well go with a course platform, because all you have to learn is how to use it, how to build that sales page. They're all drag and drop. How to create your course, and everything's included. Your billing and all these, the platforms. They've got a lot of people who are keeping it safe and secure, who are updating it, who are moving it on, who have got the fraud stuff going on in the background, who are, they've got your back. Right, why wouldn't you? So so the two things to look for is ease of use for you as the course creator and the student experience. So for me, the worst thing is when people, and again, it may sound a bit kind of bossy, but unlisted YouTube videos really irritate me, because I think if somebody's paying you for your course, then again, you've got no control, because you've got no control what they see next.
Right.
So yes, you can start with all of these things. There's usually a free element, and you can start to get going, right? But I think ultimately a course hosting platform is just so much easier. Why would you just make things more difficult for yourself? So I was speaking to somebody yesterday, and they were telling me what they're doing. I said, right, so from the student's point of view, how's this going to work and look? I said, so at the moment, you're telling me that, they've got like an hour's video to go through. I said, but really, you've got like 6 sections in there. They want to be split it into 6, put it in a hosting platform, rather than, so they wanted to do a big, long video because they were trying to put it through their WooCommerce shop. I said, that's a shop that's there for selling physical objects. Right. Maybe a one-off download. But this really is a course, so you can't cram your course into a one-off download to shoehorn it into selling it through WooCommerce. I said, from the student's point of view, that is not going to be a good experience. And a lot of these kind of art things, they're fairly short. And so what they want to do is sell a number of them, don't they? They want to sell the beginners and then the next design. And so if you don't give a good student experience, they're not going to come back for the rest of your art portfolio. Again, bearing in mind my audience, they want more people to come back. They're not just selling one big course. So that was an example there. We're trying to shoehorn it into WooCommerce, because that's what you've got on your website, is not serving your students. And so therefore you've got, it's just not a good solution. There are solutions out there that you don't need to shoehorn from somewhere else. So that's kind of where I usually look at this, but they're the two things. You're going to have to learn how something works.
Yeah.
You might as well learn how the easiest thing works, and then think, oh yeah, but I've got to pay for it. But if you're providing in-person classes, in most cases, you have to pay for a venue. You're paying
Right.
to hire a hall, or even if it's your own studio, you've spent a fortune building that studio, and then you have to heat it, and then you've got special insurance for people who, physically on your premises, and woof, it's not free, so there is a cost in all of this. So from my point of view, make it easier for yourself, go with a course hosting platform, and make it a good student experience. And yes, that still leaves a lot, but then there's a price range within there. Can you start
Yeah.
for free? Do you have a basic? Do you need all the bells and whistles? Some of the kind of course gurus just then start to promote something that actually they are a good affiliate for, and finish up sending people off to something that's going to cost them a couple of £100 a month and is quite complicated and still needs somebody else to help them with. You'll probably know the sorts of things I'm talking about. I shan't mention them, but you'll know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So, it's once you've got that decision. So I have a whole module in my course where I talk about all of these things. You've got 4 options. You've got basic, where you can send emails with a YouTube link in. That's great to get going, get someone in your world. You've got your website. It might be a Wix website or a Weebly
Right.
website or a WordPress website.
Right.
You've got course marketplaces like Udemy and Skillshare and things. And then
Right.
you've got course hosting platforms. And people say to me, well, how can I compare Udemy versus Thinkific? Well, you can't, because here's an apple and here's an orange.
Yeah.
So don't get, so I spend quite a lot of time talking about those sorts of things, because they're the things where people can make a big mistake, can waste money, and waste a really huge amount of time. I mean, again, in a lot of other courses, that's just like, oh, we were not interested in that. We've got your course topic, off you go, kind of thing. So, yeah, and the losing control thing is thinking about, oh, well, I'll have, using something like YouTube or Facebook or wherever, you've got zero control over those things. Even somewhere like Udemy, you've got no control. You've got no control of the pricing for a startup. So those things are all right, as long as you understand that it could go away in an instant, or it's part of a kind of an ecosystem that you're building. And as long as you're aware of that and aware where you're giving away control. So if you've got to be reliant on hiring, a freelancer, a virtual assistant to do things for you all the time, where's your level of control? None. You're at the whim of that person. And if the relationship doesn't go well, and I've seen it lots of times from both sides of the equation, again, it's just hard work. So I always say, course creation made faster and easier. Cut through your learning curve, follow a plan that works, build your course, and make money sooner. That's the whole point of what we want to do. If we don't want to make money out of our courses, why are we bothering? Let's be blunt here. We want to make something that can add to our business. So
coming to the last part that you said, making money, right? That's the main thing. I mean, after all these things, and there are so many theories out there, sell first, bill later, and validate, for which you said, if you're already offering in-person classes, you don't have to, because you've been validating for so many years. So do you also help people with launching and selling and pricing and all that?
Pricing, for example, it is a minefield, all right? And, for mine, I started off when I thought, oh, yeah, actually, I can do something to help these people who want to create a course. So I did the classic, I'm going to say, I'm doing this course. I offered it. I said, I want 10 people for £197. This is what you're going to get. It's the I'm going to see if this is going to fly. Okay, so I think I got 9 and just thought, oh, that'll do. I got 9 people, so £200, and then I built it, did it every week. Now a lot of artists are very, oh no, I can't sell then build, because what if I don't get the thing done? So it is a good point. So if you're doing like a talking thing where you're doing PowerPoint, like my course creation thing is like, PowerPoints and examples and screen demos and that kind of thing.
Right.
But because I've created absolutely loads of these, I'm fast, I know what I'm doing, there's no double takes. I think, right, I'm going to do this thing. off I go. I might have a couple of stumbles and take the end and start off, and I'm done in terms of editing. I was speaking to a lady yesterday. She did a 10-second reel about 35 times. It's like, you don't need to do it 35 times. So, but when your thing that you're teaching somebody on is an art, so something, say if it was pottery, you have to do it. You don't like have module 1, right, start getting your wheel out and get your clay on. Right, now I've got to wait for a week now. So like, oh, now what do I do? Your clay's dried, you know what I mean? It's like if you're cooking a recipe, you have to teach people on in one go. So there's those kind of things. And also, if you're creating samples of some hand embroidery can take a long time. And
Right.
learning how to being able to film your hands doing it is a learning curve as well. And so that sell then build is a bit scary for someone creating a creative, thing where they're in between time and physically making samples that themselves can take a long time.
Right.
So again, it's understanding what your options are. So I did it that classic way. Then the next time it's like, right, okay, this is £400, no, £500 now. I'm going to run, weekly Q&A, live coaching things. You'll get this thing, that thing, blah, blah, blah. And then my next iteration is now, right, it's going to be, because now I have extra courses on Teachable, because that's the one I picked years ago, Canva, all the things you can do in Canva. There's, so I've got all these extra courses of the things that people need, those skills, video editing skills and how to record their hands. I've got all that in there. So now it's going to be, right, it's going to be 8 times 100. In a couple of months' time, when I've added these other things in, it's going to be more expensive. So that's a classic progression of, try it out, sell it first, and then build it. But the sell then build doesn't always work, particularly with the creative people. And that took me a while to think, hang on a minute, that isn't going to work, depending on how they structure it. They don't want to drip it out every week because, as I say, you can't, my clay's gone solid now. I've got to start again. So pricing. And I think really it's down to confidence, and just start with something where you feel happy with that price. If you inside think, oh, that feels a bit expensive, you aren't going to sell that course. You aren't going to talk about it. How much is that cost? Because it's a mindset thing is a lot to do with pricing. And there's no course pricing police out there. There's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. Some people do, small prices and go for volume. Others have a high price and don't need to bother with so many. It's just, I'm starting to try and add some things that I can think I can break that out and do it as a £27 webinar. So I'm starting to build my course business with different priced offerings. It's all an evolution, isn't it, really? So that's what I would say about pricing. I mean, I've got quite a lot of videos on my website, on my learning center, I call it, where I've done like Instagram lives and then I repurpose them, put them on YouTube and stuff. So that, there's one there about pricing. So what makes you feel happy and confident that you can start selling it you can always put the price up. You could always offer a discount. I'm not really into discounts and things because then it makes people just think, oh, I'll just wait and see when the next, because you're training people, aren't you, then, that you'll discount things. So I'm not a real fan of that. Launch, again, so there's that classic sell then build. That doesn't always work for everybody. If you feel that you can't, some people have got a lot of like caring responsibilities, or they've got health issues they need to manage, or to manage their energy, or a whole load of things that doesn't fit in that rigid course guru way of this is how it has to be. It doesn't have to be that way. If because you might have health issues or caring responsibilities, you've only got 2 hours a week, then organise that 2 hours of a week to really make it count. So you're not going to be able to churn out a course quickly.
Right.
That's just not going to happen. But it will happen if you constantly, every week, spend those 2 hours in creating your content and just be focused on, doing that. I mean, I've got quite a few people at the moment who, for one reason or another, they're just ground to a halt. Like a year later, they've started, maybe somebody got stuck on video editing and somebody else has got a corporate job, and so it's there's all very valid reasons why people have kind of ground to a halt. But I'm like, right, okay, come on, right, next week I'm going to do a Zoom coaching. Come along, don't hide, don't be ashamed. Just come and say, look, I've had these things to do. We've got life gets in the way. Let's just, never mind. What's your next step? Will you take one little step? Will you spend 10 minutes? So again, there isn't that rule. Yes, there are strategies that can help, but if that feels uncomfortable or overwhelming, then don't follow it. Take some of the advice and change it to what will work. And so again, with that's what I will say to people all the time. Well, these are some kind of classic ways of doing it. However, do what works for you. What's going to feel right for you and your audience. So yeah, there's so many things that you can do.
Got it.
But it needs to fit in with you, your skills, your time availability, whatever else is going on, and how ultimately you'll serve your students. For example, if you want to put in something where every week somebody, people turn up to a Q&A or a social or a kind of show and tell, look, I've made this thing and this wasn't very good. How would I improve that? Great. If you're going to be, some of the artists will work with some of the couture houses, with some certain styles of embroidery, or the work on film costumes. I know people who work on a lot of film, costumes and so on. They tend to be very short notice, very time intensive things. So if that's part of your work where you're going to be, right, drop everything, I'm off to this film set now, I'm going to sit in a studio and sew some lovely costumes, then don't build a course that needs you to be there every week on Zoom chatting with people, because you'll just drive yourself crazy. So organize things in the way that is suitable for you, for your life, and what's going to give a good student experience. And then you can price that accordingly, because the more input that you put into it, then the higher the price, because the value is so much more, because it's back to that relationship thing. If you're talking to people and giving them advice all the time, that is worth gold to them, to help them get to where they want to be. So there we are. The anti-guru approach to course launching, pricing.
And the final topic would be, social media posting is so important to market yourself, right? What's the kind of routine or strategy that you personally follow? What's worked for you?
Right. Well, at the moment, I would say I am mostly focused on Instagram, and I've got 2 channels on there. So there's one specifically for the podcast where I focus on the new artist, and then I'll do like a couple of different styles of reels, a carousel, just a post, sometimes a quote, and do that. And really, that's, people found me through that. My other channel has got a lot less followers, but I think that's how you found me. It's like very focused on online course creation. Right. So I try to really keep that really focused, and I made a decision to also make it quite visually bright. So it's like purple and orange. So I've picked the purple and orange. I like those colours, and they're quite vivid. I'm quite a colourful person. My podcast is green and pink, right? So there's a theme here, isn't there? It's part of me. I like bright colours, but I'm appealing to visual people who also typically like bright colours. So and certainly with my Instagram, I've made a rod for my own back, because I've like got a pattern going that I like, and some people think, oh yeah, you're not still doing that kind of pattern thing. Yeah, because I like it. I just find an easier way to think, all right, I'm doing an orange one today, right? And so so it makes scheduling a bit of a nightmare. In fact, I don't. Right, that's my. Dare I admit, I don't schedule anything. I kind of know what I'm going to do, but I do tend to create on the fly. Yes, I could get better, but to schedule more, then I would have to kind of stop with the pattern thing. But I like the patterns. Yeah, you're not getting the guru side of things here. So yeah, I'm a bit adopted to my pattern. But I think the really important thing is to show yourself and show your face and be you. And again, so many of my audience are like, well, nobody wants to see me. I just share my art. And I said, yeah, but art is a very personal thing. Yeah. It's around emotions. And if you want people to buy your art against all of the artists out there, it's the people who make that personal, back to personal connections again. If you make that personal connection, so people want to know about the artist, people are interested about your stuff that's going on in the background. They are interested in that. Right. And that can be the biggest hurdle for, a lot of the people I know, is having the confidence to show their face. I'm an artist. Here's my art. This is how I make it. This is what I'm doing. And to then make that hurdle of like videos, showing the face and that kind of thing, that can be, but it is so important. And at the end of the day, you know what? Nobody cares what you look like. They're not interested in what you look like. They're not sitting there going, oh God, look at the state of her hair. Oh, dearie me, it's a bit white, this kind of thing. It's like nobody cares, because what they're doing is listening to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
We don't. It's not about us and what we look like. It's about us being there and showing our personality and how we can help them, because that's how people then connect. Oh, do you know what? She's a bit mad, but she's a person who can help me because she understands my world. And that's the connection you want to make. So it's back to that social thing. So, am I any good at social media? Probably not. I don't know. But it's like, sometimes I do think, am I just wasting my time with Instagram? It just drives me at the wall in some respects. But then that's where my audience is at the moment.
Right.
The other side of things is, maybe I should do more on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is pathetically out of date. Oh, it's really grim. I haven't posted anything on there for ages. Yes, there are more artists on there. What happens with me in LinkedIn is I get loads of folks saying, hey, do you want to buy our thing? I help coaches, I help people, course creators. You feel like you've got this target on your back, Same with podcasting. Oh, you've got a podcast. Do you want some podcast services? No, I used to do that myself years ago. I do it all myself. Thanks. I don't need podcast services, It's like, oh, yes, I know. So my LinkedIn is pathetic. I really want to move to the model of getting my YouTube. I mean, I do have quite a lot of stuff on there, and a lot of my YouTube videos are not even videos. So it's the recordings of my audio with just the image of the art. People listen because my audience are sat doing the stitching or the craft and are listening. They're not looking at a screen. Right. So it still works, as stupid as it sounds, right? My audios work well on YouTube. So I think my next stage is to go back to what I know in terms of content marketing is evergreen stuff. So being found in search, YouTube and blogging and repurposing my videos. And also I really need to dig my Pinterest out. That's where I want to put, because I say Instagram is getting more and more of a challenge. And right at this moment in time, I don't want to dive into ads. And I do strongly believe that to do well now on Facebook and Instagram, you need to be doing ads. And I don't really want to do that at the moment. So, so that's my social media thing. People look at it going, whoa, she's got this stupid pattern thing going. What's she doing? But it's just show yourself, show your face. People love to connect. With you, and put a variety. I try to show stuff about what I'm doing, and then I'll also post a few bits and pieces. I do a lot of running, so there's often kind of sweaty pictures of me after running for a start. I thought I posted a stupid one yesterday. I'd been to a theme park, so it's like, the photos. They make me
No,
howl
it's
with
so true.
laughing. So,
One of the guests that I spoke to recently, he specifically mentioned this part of posting stupid things, like he was at the barber shop having his haircut, and then he's like, "Oh, hey, here's my new haircut," and it kind of shows your personal side, and then like you said, people like connecting and see the real person, and you
Mhm.
also made a point about these gurus who are already there, and
Yeah,
people there's so much gap. How do people watching you suddenly go there, right? I mean, rather they'd listen to somebody who's building with them or who's growing with them. And
yeah, yeah.
that's kind of where we are trying to bridge a gap by having people who are doing some real stuff themselves and then share their experience, just like the way you did today.
Yeah, exactly,
um
and that's what people say to me. Well, they'll say, "Look, I can. Obviously, you're not you're not up there. You're a few steps. They'll say to me, "You're
yeah,
obviously a few steps ahead of where I am, and I want to be where you are now. You're the person to help me because I have a connection with you, etc." So, and and so the trick for people listening is find that person who is two steps ahead, who you can feel that personal connection with, who you can actually talk to, and that your email or your tweet or your whatever is not going to go to the support team. It'll,
right.
hopefully go to the actual person who you want to connect with. So,
Yes,
and that's
yes,
how you go from here up to there, is in the stepping stones of finding the next right teacher for you to get you into that next step. And so, again, all the way back round, it comes back to that: who's the right person to help you now get from where your little step is to the
right.
next little step? We don't go from here up to there unless we've won the lottery or something outstanding happens. All those people up there started
Started, yeah, yeah, yeah.
started with the first rubbish video that they did. Your first
Yes,
video is always going to be the worst. They've got them, they've deleted them now, okay, right? Because they don't even want to think about how awful it was, but they started. And that is the main thing for anybody listening: take some action. And if you don't have much money, then I think the best thing you can do is invest with an hour of somebody who does know. In that hour, you could learn so much to get you
right.
on the right path, rather than spending 30 hours bumbling around through YouTube and learn nothing, or even worse, learn the wrong thing because you don't understand why that thing was a good choice for somebody else and isn't for you.
Yeah, and also make use of the free resources that people are offering. For example, you do have something people can take away without paying anything. Now, those are really valuable stuff, and it's definitely actionable. You can finish
Mm,
that and go out and perform an action, and that is one step ahead. And then, probably when you
exactly. I
really
mean
need
that.
it,
Yeah. So so I've got this little. I made a little learning path. So this is the
right?
follow these steps, unlock your profit. 7 steps to turn your in-person classes into online money makers. So this is my new thing, but I've got videos for each
Yeah,
all of
I saw
those.
them. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So I've got all of those. So it's getting that start. And Mike, I've got another one. I mean, that's what my cup is all about. Course
right,
creation, quick start. Similar kind of thing. Um, Basically, give the mind map of all of the steps of the traditional kind of build then sell approach and a checklist and stuff like that. So there's always loads of stuff in my freebies. You don't just get a one sheet PDF, but yeah, you can learn a lot from those as well. And then you can then think, well, do you know what? Actually, I'm going to pick this thing. But I would always really try and understand the strategy and the detail behind, is that thing actually going to serve you and your students? It's always back
right.
to that with me.
So it's been a great conversation. Thank you so much for sharing candidly and generously. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I'm pretty confident that there's so much to take away from this conversation for people listening
I
about
hope so.
learning course creation.
Yeah, my top tip is Just don't believe what all the gurus say. It is harder than what they say, and it will take you longer than what you want it to. But if the magic key, if there's a magic key, it's carve out the time. You won't find it. It's not lying around for you to find. You have to carve out your time, turn other things down, and focus on investing that time and money now so that you can be in the situation where you want to be in a year's time. It's not a race, okay? And the thing that wins is consistent action taking. Even if that's half an hour a week, it's better than no time in a week. Because our time, all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, that's 6 months has gone past. Here we are in the middle of June, right? So that's the main thing, is that consistent action on your terms, and don't let anybody kind of rush you. Don't give up because you haven't got there fast enough. You will get there. We're all different. We've all got a different path to take. So just keep that in mind. Take action, and make that time. That's the key.
Great. Thank you, Sue.